Rev up your engines!
Well, Mary Barr and GM at it again. Now they say they're going to kill their Chevy Bolt again. That's their lowest price alternative electric vehicle, right? And they said they're going to cut it off before, but now they haven't because it's their biggest seller. Sounds like a genius corporation. Let's get rid of our biggest selling electric vehicle because we don't like the design. They're trying to push their Ultium EV battery system, which obviously they're having problems with, right? But they say, oh, the Bolt is too old technology. We want newer technology. They only have one vehicle that sells a bunch, and that's the Bolt. And again, they're planning on getting rid of it and replacing it with their new Ultium platform, blah, blah, blah. And as per usual, horse manure is coming out of General Motors. They promise you in the future, guess what? The future never comes. We're always living in the present, right? As the saying goes, tomorrow never comes because it's always today. Anytime somebody says in the future, take everything they say with a grain of salt. I mean, it's absurd. GM has got this Bolt, largest selling electric vehicle they have by far, and then they're going to cancel it, right? It doesn't cost enough. Don't listen to their horse manure spewing out of their mouths. Follow the money, like I always say. And in this case, they don't cost enough. They don't make as much profit. The more expensive a vehicle is, generally, the more profit is written into it. That's why dealerships always want to sell the high-end cars with all the bells and whistles, because they make a higher profit selling them. They don't like the idea their bigger seller is a cheap car. They want to sell more expensive cars, so they're making all kinds of excuses. And they actually have something that's selling and they're going to get rid of. That's GM for you. Dead from the neck up. Well, the Canadians and Justin Trudeau have indeed lost their minds. They are now saying all new cars sold by 2035 will have to be zero-emission cars. Here's their horse manure reasoning behind it that's getting really ridiculous now. As everybody knows, people really don't want to buy electric cars. They're inconvenient. In Canada, guess what? It gets really cold up there. Electric battery cars don't work that well, right? I know people in Montreal, Toronto, they got them. They're having all kinds of problems. They can't go far. They can't charge them up fully in the winter because it's too cold, and batteries don't like cold weather, right? But the Canadian government is now telling the people as if they're complete fools. Well, we got to demand 2035 all electric vehicles because we need them to make more because there's not enough supply for people to buy electric vehicles now. That's what I call the rear end backwards syndrome, They got it backwards. People aren't buying electric vehicles not because they're not available, but because they don't work all that well. The infrastructure isn't all that great. In Canada, they have the same electrical grid problems they have in the United States. And adding millions of cars to that electric grid is only going to create problems. They're going to cost more money to fix. As I say, here's what the senior government official says in Canada. These new regulations called the Electronic Vehicle Availability Standard will shorten the lengthy wait times for EVs that have been dampening consumer demand. They call it the Electric Vehicle Availability Standard. Okay? To me, that's the Canadian version of the IRA in the United States, the Inflation Reduction Act, which, if anything, created more inflation. You could call a duck whatever you want, but it's still a duck, right? And so now the Canadians are saying, well, the reason people aren't buying them is because they're not available enough. So let's force them to buy them, and that'll force the companies to build them. La, 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 right? I mean, they've lost their minds in Canada now. It's bad enough here with the Inflation Reduction Act that actually is increasing inflation, right? And it's government. Horse manure, right? Here in the United States, the Biden administration said, we're going to spend $2.5 billion to build electric chargers. This was in 2021. They have not built a single one. Nada. Not a single electric charger with that. And that was 2 years ago, and they said it's going to be a $2.5 billion plus they're going to spend, right? And now the Canadians are trying to make some bill that's going to, they think, well, that'll make people rather buy them then. Oh, there'll be more of them so they can buy more of them. People don't want them. Some of this is just ideas, right? Some people said they wouldn't like them. Some people they would. Talk to the people who've actually bought them. Many of them are getting rid of them. I met people who have bought electric cars, and they said, I'm getting rid of it when the lease is up. They were smart. They didn't buy it. They leased it because they said it's too inconvenient, right? And these are people that went through the trouble of trying it out. There's many people who don't even want to try them out. Now the Canadians are trying to force people to. Let's see how it goes between now and 2035. Hopefully by then Justin Trudeau will be a memory and people will say, why did we elect this man? He had no idea what he's doing, right? What kind of insane logic is going on in Canada? Well, here we go with more government stupidity. Now the federal government is telling the federal employees it's time to commute by EV or public transportation. Well, they're trying to tell us we have to buy electric cars by a certain date, right? The vast majority of Americans see electric cars as a gigantic joke, a pain in the rear end, and a very expensive way to get from point A to point B. So now what are they trying to do in the Biden administration? Force federal employees to get EVs, right? Well, you're going to work for us. You're going to have an electric car. They can't force the American public directly to buy electric cars, right? So now they're trying to get the federal employees to do it, right? I mean, I couldn't believe when I read this. The Biden administration is directing all federal employees to use more environmentally friendly options in traveling locally, and for federal business, private vehicles for official travel will be heavily discouraged. So they want them to buy electric vehicles and take public transportation, right? Yeah, okay. Let's see what they're doing themselves, the gigantic hypocrites in Washington, right? They're riding around in limos, taking jets everywhere, right? Yeah, but they're telling the employees, we're not doing it, but you got to do it, you know? What blatant hypocrisy. It's like we've got a dual society now. The rich elected officials who are in the pockets of the corporations who do as they please. And then they want everybody else to do, what's something that's environmentally better. I mean, it's been proven that the electric cars really don't save much of anything. You're wasting money. It's kind of like the Biden administration saying, well, you have to have more efficient refrigerators and dryers. And, that's going to save the planet. Yeah. All it does is put an onus on we as the consumer to buy expensive equipment that may or may not last all that long. And they say, that's great. Yeah, it's great for the companies to build it, that sell the crap, right? It's kind of ridiculous. And now they're trying to foist it on the federal employees because they work for them and they think they have some control over them. We'll see how that one works out the next election. Check this out. Shows how good Toyotas are made. That's a 99 Avalon that got sideswiped, T-boned, by a big Chevy Silverado pickup truck, and the guy survived perfectly intact inside. William Walker sends us email. My stepdad got T-boned in his 99 Avalon by a Chevy 1500 going 40 with a plow on it. He only got a sprained wrist and he drove the car home. And even though the Toyota airbags are 24 years old, they still work. And they went to hospital and said, if you were any new car, you would have been dead. I just want to thank you for your videos and all the help you're giving for fixing and buying cars. Well, thanks. I mean, but that shows you, hey, it's a 99. It's an old car, right? Well, he gets T-boned by a Silverado. Going off the road, all he did was get a little sprain on his wrist. That shows you how well made they're making things. Then the guy hit by a big Chevy pickup truck. T-bone. You could see it was all crunched in and the guy survived. Even back in the day, they had safety things in those things. 99 that were still working. Okay, so anybody thinks that Toyota doesn't make good products, they're probably working for GM and trying to sprout lies about right? Well, here's one for people with boats and RVs. If you're mad, hey, there's a bunch of other people too. Oswald Schmeck says, you always say follow the money, right? Well, maybe a massive class action suit against the American and Canadian governments might catch their attention by the RV and boat industries. Maybe even remote cabins, cottage rentals too. All this BS about forcing us out of internal combustion engines and generators will have catastrophic effects on the industries because you can't tow with electric vehicles any distance. Maybe all these massive dollars in lawsuits will make them slow the heck down with this electrification crap. Thanks, Oswald. Yeah, I mean, they don't even think of the gigantic ramifications doing this electrification that's not going to save the planet, right? There are so many people involved in these various industries. And all of a sudden you're going to say, well, that's it for that. Now you got to go electric, right? Electric boats. You'd be stuck in the middle of nowhere. Boats use a tremendous amount of electricity. If you don't know, ask somebody who owns a boat, I had a friend down behind me. His boat uses 59 gallons an hour. power, right? You can't use those things electrically. The batteries would have to be the size of the Titanic to run those things, right? It costs a fortune, take forever to recharge. Does anybody even think about the ramifications of trying to change all this stuff over? You know, it's just absurd when these people up above in their woke society think that they've got the answers and whatever they believe is true, regardless of what anybody else will tell them. Any scientist will say, hey, you know, electric cars aren't going to save the planet. They might knock off 1% of the pollution, or if even that, right? They're not going to save the planet. It just looks like you're doing something, you know? You really are like people, I'm recycling my plastic. It looks like you're doing it. The plastic just goes in the garbage somewhere. They send it to the ocean, or they send it to some other country where they burn it or whatever they do with it, right? But, oh, it makes you feel good. Oh, you feel good. The woke people all feel good, right? Well, forget the feeling. Let's get back to reality. And stop trying to put the feeling into logical things. Wrecks a lot of people's businesses, their recreation. It's absurd, you know, that they think this is going to save the planet. It's not going to save the planet. It's only going to create a gigantic mess of people losing their jobs. And then the scams. There's so many companies that have come, solar panels, electric cars that have gone bankrupt, lost everybody's investment money, that it can make your head spin. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.